Hello everybody and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at the latest volume from the Doctor Who spin-off series, The War Master, featuring Sir Derek Jacobi, in its 7th volume, this time entitled Self-Defense. 4 kind of separate stories linked by an overarching plot. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website in both physical CD and digital download formats. So as always with the War Master series, I was incredibly excited for this set because I've absolutely adored each and every volume. All of them have been unique and all of them have contributed something exciting to this incarnation of the Master. In particular for this box set we do of course have the return of David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, which is incredibly exciting indeed because the War Master initially debuted within the series 3 final story Utopia, and it's one of those episodes that has stuck in my memory for a long time, having watched the episode as a child, and it's incredibly exciting to see this incarnation have now a massive expanse of audio drama on Big Finish. So something of which that I would like to mention before getting into the nitty gritty of this review is that all 4 stories do not feature David Tennant. He is mainly there on the cover art to kind of be the focus of the piece. However, he is indeed only present for the 4th and final episode of this set, as we have all of the plot arc points coming together for one epic final story. But that's not to say that all of the other episodes are overshadowed. I think in fact it is the exact opposite. All 3 of the stories that contribute to this series finale have a part to play, making a very polished and extremely brilliant set. The Forest of Penitence opens the War Master Self-Defense series, and it's got all of the makings of a series finale. It definitely ups the stakes for the rest of this set, as we see the Master lost in a forest, having been mysteriously placed there with others, with no idea why. At first we see a mother who goes by the name of Blythe with her daughter Ellie take pity on this rather vulnerable looking old man as they take him back to the person who is in charge seemingly by default, who's called Corville. It's interesting seeing the War Master on the back foot, playing down his usual evilness, but still providing the little teaser here and there, suggesting this darker personality lurking beneath. His relationship with Ellie in particular is very interesting, as the Master says he could almost like her in a way. Especially in the early half of this story, she teases her mother over the dark things that lurk in the forest as they walk through it at night. The Master naturally loves this cruel behaviour. It's also unusual seeing the War Master be a part of a team, which is very unique and different. Within the first half of this story, I must admit I was rather unsure where this episode was going or what it was attempting to achieve. The cast walking through the forest attempting to get to the end seemingly was a bit of an aimless task, but as we progress through the episode we really get to know the characters. Blythe is a caring mother, Corville is a rather creepy individual who you don't quite trust, and the Master is pretty much treating the experience as a laid-back holiday. To make matters worse, a mysterious monster is hunting them down. Like many War Master stories, I think the plot is quite emotionally heavy, using its dialogue to manipulate its cast slowly throughout the episode's duration. So for those of you who like the more action-packed stories, you may consider this episode a little bit slow, but if you're a fan of Jacobi being subtle in his acting performance, I imagine this will be an episode that is excellent for you. The ending of this story is once again quite emotionally heavy, but brilliant to listen to, raising quite interesting questions about the way people handle emotions such as guilt and loss. It's a very strong way to introduce the arc for this series, and the music score fits the unsettling landscape of the narrative perfectly. Each story does have those moments when the War Master simply snaps, exposing that true evilness underneath, making for a truly gripping listen. The Players is a beautifully grim little story by Una McCormack, which highlights the Master's characteristics, but also most importantly, showing that he isn't the only bad person within the universe, which is of course essential given that these stories are taking place within the Time War. The planet Trebus has developed psychoaffective technology, manipulating people's thoughts, deleting fears, and changing people's personalities. The Galactic Federation wish to consult the planet, knowing that tensions are rising between those in power and the society in general. The planet is a police state ripe for manipulation by the Master. Gallia is sent on behalf of the Federation and the emissary to discuss the planet's membership. It's her first mission and she seems desperate to make change. Little does she know the emissary has been shot down in a Dalek attack on the way to the planet and is replaced by the Master, who sees potential in the technology's mind-manipulating power and its potential application within the Time War. It is of course clearly apparent throughout the story that the caring individual that was initially intended to be sent to the planet is indeed the Master. I personally found this story really immersive, with Gallia in contact with both sides, meeting up with a protester who's called Theo to find out the truth. Personally, I think this story would have benefited from a little bit more of the protester's perspective, but perhaps the fact that we don't know much about them goes to show how unheard the people within the society are. Magistrate Lucia and the various other officials who've developed the technology create a very sinister society with lots of hierarchy. I think you could have easily created a whole box set out of this planet dedicated to the various different angles of the technological development and its various effects on different people. Self-Defense as a box set overall follows a very similar format to the Trial of a Time Lord, where the Master's actions are being called into question and he must defend himself. Derek Jacobi is great at telling stories, and the little cutaways throughout each episode do a superb job of showing how this incarnation of the Master's mind works. Again, I think that this story is rather dialogue heavy. There's a bit more going on compared to the previous episodes, so it requires a bit more concentration from a plot perspective, but I also feel that you need to be fully immersed within the narrative in order to fully enjoy it. I can't lie, on first listen of this episode, I started the story and instantly knew about 20 minutes in that it was one of those days where my mind simply wasn't focusing on the story and what it had to tell. So therefore I decided to stop listening to the box set and leave it be for a few weeks and then return to it, and as a result it created an entirely different listening experience, to the extent that I will go on later in this review to talk about. There is an incredibly strong set, and something of which that I didn't initially seen first time round, and that is one of the risks of listening to Big Finish, where all depends on your emotional state when listening to the box sets. Sometimes you may not be able to appreciate what the story is trying to achieve. I love the Big Finish box set with clear intention and purpose. If I feel like I'm going on a journey with each episode that seems clearly planned by the production team, I will definitely enjoy the box set more. Boundaries, as written by Elizabeth Miles, returns to a lovely little episode called The Skyman, from the War Master, Only the Good. This episode, for context, I think is personally one of the best hours of content Big Finish have ever produced, so naturally I was very excited when I seen that we were A, returning to the planet, and B, seeing the return of the Master's companion, Cole. This period of the War Master's life sees him having a little bit of rest, a little bit of retirement, as he takes up the hobby of making wine and looking after his grapes, whilst Cole, his companion, tries to save a planet from the Time War without the War Master's help. Jacobi once more absolutely shines in this story. I love how protective he is of his little wine and making something work with care and attention to detail. It's the little nuggets of brilliant writing like this which make this incarnation of Master, for me personally, the best incarnation to date. He's so witty, but also kinda gentle and kind, whilst also being utterly evil all at the same time. So when an alien fungi threatens his grapes, the Master naturally wants to get to the bottom of the situation. Fenice becomes his companion for the story, helping him find the source of the unusual moss, as she is also a regular wanderer in the local forest. I do always enjoy seeing the Master pair up with someone who is completely oblivious as to how evil he is. Simultaneously, this story is an example of how the Master saves a planet whilst also killing at the same time, but doing it for a good cause as he continues to defend himself in court. Seeing Johnny Green back as Cole is also an absolute delight. Every single scene with him and the Master is brilliant and unique. My one little complaint, despite the fact that I love this story, was that we didn't get to see as much Cole as I was initially expecting, remaining mostly absent throughout the middle of the story. The relationship between the Master and Cole is very interesting, seeing the Master actually care about another person. It's odd seeing the Master in the company of another, whilst not trying to maintain the higher ground of authority. They clearly feel safe around each other, and there's definitely a care within the relationship, which is very interesting to see unfold, and it's nice that we get to see more content expanding this relationship beyond only the good. Once again, as we see the Master kind of relaxed on a planet doing his own thing, actually having a little cottage and an occupation, we kind of get to see another side to this character. And of course in recent years I feel like there has been a lot of content out there making the bad people from certain films and TV look good or having a good side. But what I like about this series is that yes, we do have that more humane side of the Master coming out, but equally at the same time, these very humane stories actually result in him also bringing out his most evil and most angered performance to date, essentially, because The Skyman lives in my memory as being one of the most memorable stories that Big Finish have ever produced. Come the end of episode 3, I really think this box set is coming together as something quite special. I love how this box set appears to connect back to Only the Good as a series overall, one of my personal favourite Big Finish box sets of all time. So now the War Master has defended himself, it's time to call a witness, which can only mean it's time to call his worst enemy of all. The last line, as written by Lizzie Hopley, has one hell of a job to end out this series, but in an achievable way. I think some series have a habit of creating final stories which frankly are impossible to make a truly satisfying conclusion, but Self-Defense as an overall package is so carefully crafted, it doesn't bite off more than it can chew. The trial threads which have connected all of the episodes together is manageable for the listener to understand. This story is a summary of the trial so far, with the Doctor being called as witness in order to save the Master from execution. Lizzie has explored the relationship between the Doctor and the Master in such a careful way. We've seen so many stories with these two characters going up against each other. Pretty much the vast majority of the Third Doctor era is based on that fact alone, but the last line manages to make this story style refreshing. There is an unspeakable bond between the Doctor and the Master which, no matter how opposite they are, the Doctor will come to his help, especially the 10th incarnation, having recently experienced the death of the Master within Series 3. This story ultimately lives up to expectations, seeing David Tennant and Derek Jacobi, frankly some of the biggest names within the UK industry currently, go up against each other. The story uses the point within life that the characters are currently at to draw the narrative forward, with this Master having never met the 10th Doctor, but he's aware that something has happened in his future. The narrative allows the characters to talk and figure out ways in which the Doctor can fight for justice within the Court of Vectors, but also help the character of Severin, a girl who keeps the Master both mentally and physically imprisoned. Severin is an absolutely brilliant character, superbly brought to life by Sophie Shad. Despite the seemingly innocent voice, Severin is a powerhouse which threatens the Master in a way like never before. I think it's very clear what this story has to do, and Lizzie Hopley delivers that. We get to see so many different scenes with the Master and the Doctor together in quite a confined cell, allowing for this dynamic to really blossom. It's a small cast to end out this series, but this allows the listener to fully enjoy each character. Tennant offers a really strong performance as he returns to the Time War and needs to deal with the Master whilst questioning his own personal beliefs. This definitely concludes the set on a high. Self-Defense is without a doubt one of the best, if not the best, Big Finish release I've listened to so far in 2022. It belongs with the War Master Only the Good as one of the best sets I've listened to in the entirety of Big Finish, and I do not say that lightly. The sheer quality of this series, release after release, continues to shine a much needed light on this incredibly evil but brilliant incarnation of the Master. Each episode has a standout Jacobi moment, concluding in a very polished listening experience from start to end. So thank you very much for watching this review of the War Master Volume 7 entitled Self-Defense, another absolutely brilliant addition to the series that I highly recommend. You don't need to have listened to any of the previous War Master box sets in order to enjoy this set, and to be honest, I recommend checking out this series in general. Of course, there is another box set due later this year, I do believe in December, as we see the War Master enter the land of myth and fiction, which I'm incredibly excited to listen to indeed. And of course, on that note, do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular Big Finish audio drama reviews. Have a nice day, I shall see you all next time.